for a part-time job.
Michael Devine at AM 1400 KVFD.
That's right. I'm the mayor of Manville, and the assistant mayor has got to be Rob Jones, news and sports director. Hi, Rob.
Hello, Mayor. How are you today?
Actually, the real mayor is coming in for about 20 minutes today.
Oh, is that right?
Mayor Bemrick, yeah, he should be, unless he calls off, but I haven't heard from him yet. He's usually pretty good about letting me know before the last second. So we'll just have to see. By the way, you can go to the Alpha Media Fort Dodge website or my personal Facebook page, AM 1400 KVFD, just AM 1400 KVFD. We have a live stream going on, and I am fixing the camera right now. Should have done this before.
There we go.
So we can get a full frontal of Rob Jones. There he is, ladies and gentlemen.
I don't know. You probably should have warned the audience before we did all that.
Oh, no. They know you by now. You've been over here over a year, haven't you?
Yeah, I've been here since June of last year.
Oh, there we go. That's all right. So you're going in. You're one of us then. You've been through a winter.
I have been through a winter, most brutal time of my life, but I did go through a winter.
You know, I talked with some radio guys I knew the other day in North Carolina. I haven't worked with them in a long time, but they're all great guys, and they're right on the coast out there, you know.
Yeah.
And when I got there, they used to tell me, "Oh, you're not one of us till you live through one of our winters." So I did, and I thought, so what?
Yeah, because you're from Iowa.
That's right.
It's no comparison.
Yeah, I mean, they had that nor'easter coming off the ocean. It got cold, sure. I mean, it got slick on the roads every now and then, but they all stayed home when it got slick on the roads. You know, I just drove to work.
Well, yeah, they don't have any plows.
They don't. They don't at all, do they? No.
Like when it happens, it just happens, and you just stay home.
That's exactly, and it didn't happen very often. By the way, I was actually out there for 2 winters, so I was a real pro. Anyway, Iowa State's kicking off this weekend.
Well, for the Big 12 conference play, they've already played the one game, got beat by Louisiana Lafayette a couple of weeks ago.
That was great.
Which did not really shock me that much because as we had talked about it, Mike, you know, I talk about Louisiana as one of those places just has a rich talent base, you know, and a place that puts out more NFL players than any other place per capita. So didn't surprise me that they were able to hang around. I was a little surprised in, I guess, the margin of victory, but I wasn't surprised that they necessarily beat Iowa State in game one. But
you
we'll see.
Have been one of the few people, though, because Iowa State was ranked at the time 23rd in the country.
True. But that name next to your number is just a number until you prove it on the field.
You know, and that's all. You are 100% correct. But you know, I've been to Lafayette, Louisiana. I've been all over Louisiana.
Oh yeah, me too.
You know, Lafayette isn't that big a place. You know, and I understand Ames isn't, but Ames has a student body of 25,000. Louisiana Lafayette, I think, has about 6,000-7,000.
True, but here's the difference. The difference is that in the state of Louisiana, there's one major in-state school, LSU, that can only have 85 scholarship players. So all that other talent's got to go somewhere, right? So if they don't go out of state, they're right there in Lafayette, Louisiana. Plus, you've got East Texas that's 3-4 hours away from Lafayette, Louisiana, too. So really, and in Mississippi as well, that where you can recruit to, recruit from. So there's a lot of talent right there within a 3-4 hour drive in any direction you want to go.
We're going to talk about college football mainly, but I got to talk about Joe Burrows from LSU just a little bit. I watched him. He's a starting quarterback now for the Cincinnati Bengals.
Right.
And the Bengals have been in terrible shape, I think, since Ken Anderson was a quarterback way back in the early 1980s, you know.
They've had a couple of pockets where they were okay and made the playoffs, but mostly it's been futility, yeah.
Well, I think they're going to have to expand the league because there's so many playoff spots available that they don't have enough teams to be in. Now, Louisiana, you know, and I'm not saying this with any joy, but the Cincinnati Bengals have really sucked over the years. You know?
Yeah, they have.
And Burrows was terrific against the Cleveland Browns. Baker Mayfield, of course, is the Browns quarterback.
Right.
And Baker played a great game. Odell Beckham, I guess, is injured. But there's two things I noticed. First of all, Joe Burrows made a couple of rookie mistakes. He holds the ball too long for professional football, you know, and he got it knocked away or knocked down a couple times. But his passes were Tom Brady-like. I mean, he put the ball right on the spot. He had a number of drops, as a matter of fact. So he doesn't have too many Odell Beckhams on his spot. But I was really impressed with that young man. Very impressed.
Yeah, he can read the field pretty well, and he's got really good accuracy, can really throw the ball in a bucket anywhere that he needs to throw it. He's got a good sense of the game, good feel for the game, high IQ. And the whole speed of the game at the pro level is different, and he's going to adjust to it.
Yeah, he
just
will.
Give him a little time.
Doubt.
He'll adjust to it. I would venture to say, Mike, that we're sitting here early in the season. By the end of this season, I think he's going to progress in that manner, and you're going to see some steps forward from him. I think going forward, I think he's going to be great. I think all of the other things that I mentioned and qualities he has to go along with some pretty good size and decent athleticism, I think are just going to bode well for him in the league. I think he's going to be great, just like
I think he's going to be great too. I think, Cincinnati obviously needs to have a better team around him.
Yeah.
I mean, the offense, he got rushed a couple of times pretty hard because who doesn't know that he's their offense? He needs a running back. He needs a couple of offensive guys. Well, actually, he needs a whole team.
He definitely they need to upgrade their line for sure, because if they don't make some upgrades on the offensive line, it's not going to matter what he does, because he's going to get his brains beat out.
Oh, and you could see the difference when Cleveland had the ball. Mayfield had a chance to throw the ball.
Right.
And he had receivers available too. Anyway, let's look at ISU, Iowa State Cyclones. We started there, but I had to go to Joe Burrows in that, because I was really impressed. I'm impressed by Tellett, and I tell you, he's got it.
I think so too. Iowa State, of course, on the road this week. TCU down in Fort Worth, Texas. Cowtown, as they call it in that part of the world. So that'll be interesting. A 12:30 kickoff. That game, we'll have that game for folks to listen to on KWMT, our sibling station, AM 540. 12:30 kickoff. Pregame will start 2 hours prior to that. So they'll have all the coverage there. And I'm looking and I'm thinking that we're going to see a big step forward from week 1 to now, with ISU having the week off last week. They've now have had, 2 weeks to prepare for this game and to look at that film from week number 1 as to what they didn't do well. And really what killed them in the fourth quarter against Louisiana Lafayette was special teams plays. They gave up 2 big plays on special teams that ended up kind of being the difference. So they've got to fix that. They've got to fix some of their inability to move the football offensively too.
Yeah. I was very surprised at that performance. And I'm beating a drum here that everybody in the state has been beating on, that the Cyclones, Purdy showed flashes of his old self, but the rest of the team, God.
He had a really bad game, and it kind of uncharacteristic because, last year he had a pretty good season for the most part.
Yeah.
I mean,
he's a good quarterback.
And they didn't get much out of Breece Hall either, and that shocked me because Breece Hall at running back was really coming on at the end of the year last year. So that's kind of shocked me, but we'll see now. They've had some time to make some adjustments, and we'll see if those adjustments carry over. And they have a little bit of an advantage in this game. TCU has not played a game yet.
Okay.
So TCU hasn't been on the field to figure out what they need to work on, and that level of improvement, that gap of improvement, usually from week 1 to week 2, your first or your second game is where you improve the most. So TCU hasn't had that. Their first game against SMU was called off because of COVID.
Well, have you checked into TCU at all to see what kind of opponent they might be?
They're going to be a solid opponent.
Oh, they always are.
I mean, they are. And the thing about them is they bring back a lot of guys from last year. Gary Patterson, their coach, is a genius defensively, well respected. They're going to have a good defensive game plan. They're going to have guys who can run. When you play teams from that part of the country, they're going to have athletes. They're going to have guys who can run, that kind of thing. But I think Iowa State, if they can put it together for week 1, I think they got a shot. I think it'll be competitive. I mean, what we saw of them last year was pretty much they were competitive every week, and it was a play here, a play there.
University of Iowa, what are you hearing about them?
Well, University of Iowa will open on October 24th. Big Ten's going to kind of open then. And I would expect a big year out of Amir Smith-Marset at receiver. I mean, he's been on all the preseason watch list and award list and that kind of thing coming in. I also, they're going to line up, they're going to run the ball, they're going to be physical, they're going to run it through between the tackles. So, I would expect a little bit more of the same. My brother and I, because we are Southerners and we're different, we kind of came up on a different style of football. We find the way that they play in the Big Ten to be a little bit mundane.
We're old school in the Big Ten.
Yes, very vanilla in the play call.
Well, there's no doubt about that. Woody Hayes came out years ago with that ground and pound offense, and it was great in the 50s and 60s. But times change.
Well, they still do it. A lot of the schools still do it. I can just about guarantee you what the first series plays are going to be for Iowa on October 24th, and I'm not on the coaching staff. They're going to run up the middle. They're going to run off tackle. Third down, they're going to play action, dump it to the tight end, and if they don't get it, they're going to punt. It has worked out for them, but that's just about exactly what the playbook is.
I don't know. Kirk's been down there 22, 23 years, and everybody wants to point to his bowl games, but I look at his bowl games and think Tax Slayer Bowl. Give me a break. And I know they went out the Rose Bowl a few years ago, and they got the hell kicked out of them by Stanford. It was embarrassing. Stanford was on the field with cows making fun of the University of Iowa.
I think with them, I understand people's frustration. If they were, I don't necessarily expect them to win the Big Ten when you've got to contend with Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan, but I do expect them to win their division, win the Western Division. I mean, the Western Division is not necessarily powerhouse. You should be, once in a while, you should be able to beat Wisconsin and win a division. Or
that's right.
Now you got to worry about Minnesota, though, because of P.J. Fleck and what he's doing up there.
P.J. Fleck's going to start beating Iowa regularly.
I think so too.
Kirk is so set in his ways.
I love PJ Fleck. He's a guy that if I had a son who played football, I would want him to play for PJ Fleck. He gets a lot out of guys, and you look at their roster from what they had last year, and the guys that were making big plays, and you look at their hometowns, and you're seeing guys from Texas, you're seeing guys from Arkansas, seeing guys from Oklahoma. They drove past 6 or 8 other schools they could have played at to play for him.
Yeah,
that tells you what you need to know about him. Guys want to play for him, and he's going to motivate them and develop them when they get there. And so I think they're the next kind of step in that direction at University of Minnesota.
Well, we're still playing as if Iowa belongs to the Ferentz family, and Kirk's running the Brian Ferentz protection program. I mean, they got rid of Chris Doyle, the strength coach, but they circled the wagons on Brian Ferentz, even though he apparently was doing things worse than Chris Doyle. So I'm a Hawkeye fan, but I don't like the way they run that program.
It's hard to know what was going on. We weren't privy to any of that.
That's right, we weren't.
But I'll say this: like Brian Ferentz is the offensive coordinator. My problem with the way they play is that the offense is way too vanilla, and they need to open up the offense, and they need to get a few more guys who can make plays in that offense and get the guys in space and open the offense up a little bit. So my problem with Brian Ferentz is not whatever happened, because I don't know what happened,
right, I understand.
But it is in the play calling, because that much I can see what's going on.
They had that strong arm quarterback last year. They had him for 4 years. Nate Stanley. And here's this 6'4", 240-pound guy, and he's throwing sideline passes. You give him a chance, he can throw it out of the stadium.
Yeah.
But and sometimes his long range accuracy wasn't very good. I got to admit it.
No, not necessarily, but you don't have to just throw it down the field all the time to open up the offense. There's different things you can do. You've got some guys like Amir Smith-Marset and some other guys in that offense that you can take them and get them in space and give them a ball on a slant route or a hitch route or something, and those guys can make something happen. So there's a lot of different ways to skin the cat, as they say, but they kind of keep that old vanilla style of play calling, and they're going to win some games that way. They have they're going to win 8 games a year or so, 8, 9 games a year, whatever, and as long as that's okay for their fan base, then I'm okay with that. I never am one of these guys who says let's fire a coach that wins 8 or 9 games a year, because
that's what they did with Bo Pelini in Nebraska.
They did it with Bo Pelini. It didn't work out. They did it with Frank Solich before him at Nebraska. Ask Tennessee. They fired Phil Fulmer when he won the SEC Eastern Division. I still remember that to this day.
And what did it get Tennessee, by the way?
Nothing. They've been terrible since they fired Phil Fulmer. Look at Texas A&M, R.C. Slocum. They ran him out of town. And they've never been the same again. The only place that I've ever seen it work out is the University of Georgia, because they kind of pushed Mark Richt out and he left, and Kirby Smart came in and he's kind of superseded some of that. But that's Georgia. That's a sheetrock school.
Yeah.
And they have.
What do you mean by sheetrock school?
Well, sheetrock school is basically that it's a shingle or a sheetrock school to where it recruits itself. Okay. You've got like LSU. In Georgia, you've got Georgia and Georgia Tech. But they're not the same recruiting field. And the reason being, Georgia Tech is so hard to get into. Like Georgia Tech, you have to be, a really good, student. And so they're not recruiting the same player. So when you're Georgia and you've got all this talent in the state, and they have more talent now in the state of Georgia than they've ever had, according to what you look at in the recruiting rankings. And so they're set up for success in a place like that. LSU is another one that's a sheetrock school. Alabama, Clemson, those places are going to always kind of be like that, or at least they're going to have cycles like that for the most part. But those are few and far between. You can't do that when you're everybody else. If you're an Iowa fan and you run Kurt out of town, well, who do you get that's going to do any better?
I finally got my big Hawkeye fans that are in here tomorrow, every Friday, Mulholland and Kuhlman, to finally admit what you just said. If they get rid of Kurt, who are they going to get? Because nobody will come to a small college town in Iowa.
You better know who you're going to get.
Let's just admit that and be down the road with it. Don't tell me to stand. Don't tell me to let Kurt stand on his record, because he beats all the Rutgers in the world. But if Ohio State, in Nebraska, by the way, Scott Frost is going to start beating him again too. So
he may do it.
Yeah, he may do it. I mean, they won by a field goal last year, and Scott Frost was mightily ticked off about that. He was just. Of
course, now he's got something to prove now too. I mean, I kind of do think that they're going to take a step in the right direction, but they've got to prove it on the field too, because we heard last year that that was going to be the year where they took a big step forward, and it really wasn't. So
no, it really wasn't. But Frost is the look in his eyes. He's a competitor, boy. I'm not a big Scott Frost fan. I wasn't a Scott Frost fan when he was quarterback of the Nebraska team 20 years ago. I thought he was kind of a weenie, frankly, but he's a competitor. He'll get out there and
and he did a great job at Central Florida.
Yes, he did.
So
there's Central Florida's a pretty good football school.
They are, and Florida's another place where only 85 guys can go to Florida, only 85 guys can go to Miami, only 85 guys can go to Florida State. And to be honest, Central Florida's probably getting guys to go there that don't want to go to Florida State right now because it's a dumpster fire. So, I mean, it's kind of one of those deals. So, again, a talent-rich state where there's only 85 scholarships at other places, they're going to get guys who can play. It's a matter of identifying those guys and finding those guys that may be the 2 or 3 star guy that aren't the big heralded recruit, but are guys that you can take and work with, and 3 years, 4 years, that guy can be a star for you.
Sure, yeah. You were talking about Georgia. Let's jump next door to Georgia, Alabama. Nick Saban's got to be pushing 70. It looks like he's still putting out a quality team, but in Alabama, I'll tell you, there were how many NCAA championships they have? I think it's 7 under Saban.
They've got a bunch. I would have to look at it. They've got a bunch.
Yeah. And then if you want to go back to Bear Bryant, they may have more NCAA championships than any school. I don't know. That would be an interesting trivia question. Somebody get on Wiki, not if you're driving a car, and tell us who has the most NCAA championships. Don't be doing that while you're driving at all. But do you see anything from Alabama you had a chance to look at?
I have not really been able to look at them. The SEC, opens this weekend too. So we'll get a chance to maybe take a look at them on the field. I haven't seen a whole lot out of them, but look, it's Alabama. The guys that were backups last year that you haven't heard of, those guys have been sitting there for 2-3 years waiting to be a star. That's the way it is. It's Alabama. They're locked and loaded, man, and they're always going to be in that situation. Last year LSU was able to kind of take them down, but that's a few and far between deal. They're going to be in there, in the top 3, 4, 5 in the mix. And, LSU's going to take a step back. I mean, they have to with everything they lost, and they've got guys that that were coming back, that came back, that are not playing because of the COVID situation too. Jamar Chase, one of the best receivers in the country. Trey Sheldon, really good offensive lineman. Both are high prospects for the NFL draft for 2021. So neither one of those guys are playing. So they're going to take a little bit of a step back. Again, they're going to be talented too, but they're going to have to take a step back a little bit.
We were talking about the stale play of the Big Ten in general. Did I tell you that Woody Hayes story from Ohio State? I think I did. He was asked why he didn't pass more, and he said, "Well, there's three things that can happen." Yeah, and I did tell you that. Now I got to. Well,
no, you didn't necessarily tell me that. I've heard that all my life. Okay. I played for a high school coach that was that way.
Well, Woody Hayes said there's three things that happen when you pass. It can be intercepted, a bad thing. It can be incomplete, also a bad thing. Or there can be a reception, but 2 out of the 3 of those things are bad.
Yeah.
So I'm playing the percentages in ground pound, pretty much is what he said. So that was Woody's philosophy, and he became the Big Ten philosophy.
Well, and it's worked in some places, but I think if you look at how Ohio State has been kind of dominant in the league and how good Penn State has been in the last 4 or 5 years, I think you can trace back to the play calling for them, the way they look, the things they do offensively is a little bit different and a little bit more wide open than what a lot of the rest of the league does. And I think it's a direct correlation as to why they've been successful, and they're able to recruit athletes that they're able to run that system with. So, I mean, to me, I think you look at the top of the league and you see that they've kind of changed a little bit of their philosophy, and it's resulted in success in the top of the league.
Absolutely. Well, we can't get out of here without talking about Trevor Lawrence and Clemson, of course.
I want to talk about high school football for
I beg your pardon. Well, we better get that done, and we'll save South Carolina for another time. Go
okay. High school football tomorrow night. We've got 3 games on the docket. Fort Dodge is at Urbandale. Going to be a stiff task for that, stiff test. Urbandale is undefeated, one of only 4 in Class 4A that remain undefeated. They're number 2. They've got college-level talent all over the place. They got 2 guys that are committed to play for Kurt Ferentz at the University of Iowa.
Good.
So the Dodgers will have their work cut out for them. We'll see if they're able to capitalize on the momentum from last week's win over Marshalltown. 6:45 on 92 Rock. I'll be in Urbandale for that game tomorrow night. 6:45 for the pregame, 7 o'clock for the kick. That's on 92 Rock. Sunday 99.7. That's St. Edmund. St. Edmund coming off their first loss. Really just honestly got it handed to them by West Hancock.
Well, West Hancock turned out to be a pretty good
team. And a lot of folks are starting to think they may end up being your state champion again. But St. Edmund now has to respond. They've got Matson Northwest Webster, local rivalry, good opportunity to respond tomorrow night. We'll see if they're able to answer the bell. 6:45 pregame, 7 o'clock kick. That's on Sunday 99.7. And the game everybody around here is talking about, South Central Calhoun, Southeast Valley tomorrow night. And
we're all talking about
in Rockwell City.
Look
People
out.
are talking about they're worked up over there at South Central Calhoun, and they are ready. Homecoming tomorrow night, 105.9 The Beach. Southeast Valley's undefeated. South Central Calhoun is unbeaten, and they just dismantled Pocahontas. Like, I expected that game last week between them and Pocahontas area to be a competitive game, and they got down 7-0. South Central Calhoun did, and reeled off 40 in a row and just dismantled them. And Pocahontas area is a good team, so I think South Central Calhoun's playing their best. Let's see if Southeast Valley, they're 4-0. Their opponents have not been this caliber yet, so let's see if they are at that caliber, and we'll see tomorrow night. 7 o'clock kick, 105.9 The Beach.
See, you've been working over the other side of the building with Murley, and Murley thinks the center of the universe is Calhoun County.
Well, it's because he's never left Calhoun County except to come over here.
KWMT goes into 5 states, so as far as he's concerned, it's a local Calhoun County station. Rob Jones, a better guest. Thank you, Rob.
All right. Thank you, Mike.
All right. This is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge.